A routine checkup that could secretly put you at risk. 5 medical tests. Seniors must rethink. Every year, millions of older adults walk into clinics believing they're making the smartest choice for their health. Routine checkups, standard tests, and the reassurance that everything's just fine. But here's the twist. Some of these very same tests designed to protect you can quietly raise your risk of a stroke, sometimes overnight. Hard to believe, isn't it? After all, we're taught to trust our doctors to follow the plan, to stick to the schedule. Yet hidden inside the fine print of modern medicine are risks that nobody bothers to tell you about. Not the news, not the brochures, and sometimes not even your own physician. Picture this. You leave your annual exam with peace of mind, relieved that the results look good. But days later, you're hit with dizziness, blurred vision, or worse, a sudden mini-stroke. And you're left wondering, what on earth just happened? The truth is, this certain diagnostic tests, especially when repeated too often, or done on a body already managing high blood pressure, heart disease, or kidney issues, can trigger dangerous chain reactions. Spikes in blood pressure, disrupted circulation, and in the wrong moment, even a life-altering stroke. But before you panic, let me be clear, this video isn't about fear. It's about awareness. It's about equipping you with the right questions so you can protect yourself and the people you love. Because once you hit your 60 seconds, staying healthy isn't just about catching problems early. It's also about avoiding the risks we accidentally create for ourselves. So in the next few minutes, we're going to reveal the 5 most common medical tests that may quietly carry stroke risks for seniors. And more importantly, I'll show you exactly how to safeguard yourself before your next appointment. If you're over 60, drop the number 1 inch, the comments. If you're younger, drop a 0, and don't forget to subscribe to Elderly Wisdom Stories, where we dig into the truths most people never talk about. Now let's dive in. Test 1, the CT scan with contrast dye. If you've ever had a CT scan with contrast, you probably remember that strange warm rush spreading through your body as the dye entered your bloodstream. That's the contrast doing its job, making blood vessels, tissues, and organs glow on the screen for your doctor to see. Sounds useful, right? But here's what most seniors are never told. That little injection can do far more than just light up the image. It can quietly put stress on your heart and blood vessels. And if you're over 60 with a history of high blood pressure, heart disease, or kidney problems, the risks rise sharply. For some, the dye triggers what's called a vasovagal reaction, a sudden drop in both heart rate and blood pressure. This can leave you dizzy, nauseous, or even cause you to faint. In others, the exact opposite happens. Blood pressure spikes, dangerously fragile, vessels constrict, and the perfect storm for a stroke or cardiac event begins to form. A study published in the Journal of Vascular and Interventional Radiology revealed that older adults undergoing contrast-enhanced CT scans face significantly higher vascular complications within just 72 hours, especially those already living with hypertension, cardiovascular disease, or impaired kidney function. Hidden risks behind routine tests. When your body is already vulnerable, say you're managing high blood pressure, heart disease, or kidney trouble, the contrast dye used in CT scans can quietly turn from friend to foe. The weaker your system, the heavier the burden it has to carry. Let me give you a real-world example. I'll change his name for privacy. Let's call him Mr. Turner, 81 years old. He went in for what seemed like a simple abdominal CT scan. Nothing major, just a little stomach discomfort his doctor wanted to check out. The scan results: completely normal. He walked out smiling, thinking he was in the clear. But 2 days later, everything changed. Mr. Turner suffered a minor stroke. Doctors believed the contrast injection had temporarily spiked his blood pressure, creating the perfect condition for a clot to form and cut off blood flow to part of his brain. Now let's be fair, CT scans with contrast aren't villains. In fact, they can be life-saving. They help detect cancers, blood clots, aneurysms, things that caught early can absolutely save lives. But the lesson here is simple. These scans should never be treated like a casual add-on to your checkup. They need to be used with caution, especially later in life. So what can you do? Before you roll up your sleeve, ask your doctor a few direct questions. Is this scan truly essential, or are we just doing it to be safe? Given my age and health conditions, is there a safer alternative? Can this be done without contrast? Also, don't hold back on your medical history. Mention everything: high blood pressure, heart disease, kidney issues, even past reactions to medications or dyes. In many cases, a non-contrast CT or a simple ultrasound may give your doctor all the information they need without the added risk. Moving on, the stress test. Now, let's shift to another exam. Many older adults get, even when they feel perfectly fine, the exercise stress test. On paper, it looks brilliant. Hook yourself up to a monitor, walk on a treadmill, and let the doctor see how your heart handles pressure. Sounds smart, right? But if you're over 60, especially with blood pressure problems or a heart condition, this test can be more than just a workout. It can actually be a spark in a dry forest, small but capable of setting off something big. Here's what happens. The treadmill speeds up your heart rate, climbs your blood pressure, shoots higher and higher, and suddenly your cardiovascular system is under enormous strain. A young, healthy 30-year-old body can probably handle it. But in seniors with fragile vessels, the risk is far greater. Possible dangers include sharp spikes in blood pressure, sudden irregular heartbeats or arrhythmias, and in rare but very real cases, tiny tears in blood vessels, especially in the brain. A 2020 study in the American Journal of Cardiology tracked more than 1,300 patients over age 65 who went through treadmill stress tests. Nearly 7% experienced dangerous events during or right after the test. Blood pressure surges, abnormal rhythms, or worse. And the group hit hardest, those who already had vascular issues. And this isn't just theory, it's happening to real people. Take the story of Margaret from Ohio, one of our viewers. At 74, she'd managed high blood pressure for years. Her doctor suggested a stress test just to check in. Halfway through the treadmill portion, she felt dizzy, her chest tightening. They stopped immediately. But by the next day, she suffered a minor stroke. Doctors later explained the test had likely pushed her blood pressure beyond its limits, rupturing a fragile vessel in her brain. When a simple test pushes the body too far, Margaret's story is a powerful reminder. At 74, she'd lived with high blood pressure for years. When her doctor suggested a stress test just to check things out, she agreed. Halfway through the treadmill portion, she felt lightheaded and pressure built in her chest. The team stopped the test immediately. But by the next morning, Margaret had suffered a minor stroke. Doctors later explained what happened. The test didn't cause the stroke outright, but it put her already fragile system under so much strain that it tipped the balance. The sudden rise in blood pressure ruptured a tiny vessel in her brain, something that might not have happened otherwise. The lesson here isn't to fear every test, it's to ask smarter questions. Before agreeing, talk openly with your doctor. Is there a safer way to evaluate my heart? Could a nuclear stress test, which uses medication instead of a treadmill, be better for me? What about a resting echocardiogram? Would that give you enough information? And here's something critical: if you're not currently experiencing chest pain, shortness of breath, or unexplained fatigue, ask whether the test is truly urgent or whether it could safely wait. Sometimes patience is the better prescription. Next up, endoscopy routine, but not always risk-free. Now let's move to another test that's become almost automatic, especially after 60, the endoscopy. Whether it's to check your esophagus, your stomach, or your colon, many doctors suggest it just to be safe. Sometimes that advice is wise. But here's the side no one talks about. If you don't genuinely need the procedure, especially when sedation is involved, it can actually create new risks. Why? Because after 60, most people are already taking some type of daily medication. Blood thinners like warfarin, aspirin, or Plavix are incredibly common. During sedation, your blood pressure naturally drops and circulation shifts. Add blood thinners into the mix, and suddenly you're facing a much higher chance of internal bleeding or worse, disruptions in brain circulation that can trigger a silent stroke. The evidence is real. A 2021 large-scale review published in Gastrointestinal Endoscopy found that patients over 65 who underwent sedated endoscopies had a noticeable increase in transient ischemic attacks, mini-strokes, within 72 hours of the procedure. These weren't full-blown strokes, but they were red flags. The brain's blood flow had been disturbed. One case still lingers in my mind. A woman, let's call her Helen, was 76 when she went in for a routine colonoscopy with sedation. She had no symptoms at all. But 2 days later, she began slurring her speech and stumbling. At the ER, doctors confirmed she'd had a mild stroke. Their conclusion, the combination of lowered blood pressure from sedation and her daily aspirin, created just the right conditions for a clot to travel and block blood flow. Endoscopy. When routine isn't always necessary, even though an endoscopy is considered a fairly safe procedure, the mix of age, sedation, and daily medications can sometimes create the perfect storm. This doesn't mean you should refuse every endoscopy, but it does mean you shouldn't automatically agree to one unless your doctor can clearly explain why it's needed right now. If your only reason is it's been a few years and you don't have any symptoms, pause and ask, is there a safer way to monitor my condition? Because sometimes surveillance can be done differently with less risk. Always give your doctor the full picture of your medications. That's especially important if you're taking blood thinners. Ask questions like, should I stop my blood thinner before the procedure? What are the risks of sedation for someone my age and with my health history? Can this be done with lighter sedation or even without sedation at all? The safest option isn't skipping the test altogether, it's modifying how it's done. MRI with contrast, the hidden role of the kidneys. Now let's turn to a test that doesn't usually raise eyebrows, but can carry hidden risks, the MRI. These scans are incredible. They allow doctors to see deep inside the body, catch problems early, and sometimes prevent unnecessary surgeries. On their own, MRIs are not the issue. The concern begins when a contrast dye is used to make the images sharper. That contrast dye often contains gadolinium, a heavy metal. Normally, your kidneys flush it out quickly. But here's the catch. After the age of 60, kidney function naturally slows down. And if you already have chronic kidney disease or even mild impairment, you don't know about your body may not clear the gadolinium as efficiently. Gadolinium buildup has been linked to a rare but serious condition called nephrogenic systemic fibrosis, NSF. This disease hardens and thickens the skin and connective tissue. In its worst form, it can restrict mobility, affect breathing, and even damage organs. But that's not the only concern. Research shows gadolinium can remain in brain tissue. Some scientists believe this may trigger subtle neurological symptoms, confusion, dizziness, disorientation symptoms that are especially concerning for people already at risk of circulation problems. A 2019 study published in Radiology followed more than 2,000 patients over 65 who underwent contrast-enhanced MRIs. Within a week, around 5% reported stroke-like symptoms, things like headaches, blurred vision, and balance issues. These weren't full strokes, but they were warning lights flashing on the dashboard. Almost all of those patients also had underlying kidney issues, whether they knew it or not. One case that really stands out is Harold, a 79-year-old veteran from Arizona. He went in for an MRI because of chronic back pain. His doctor ordered the scan with contrast to be thorough. Harold didn't realize his kidneys were already weakened. 2 days after the scan, he felt lightheaded, weak, and mentally foggy symptoms that lasted nearly a week. Only later, when his primary doctor ran blood work, did they discover he had stage 3 kidney disease. Harold shook his head and said, "No one warned me. If I'd known, I would have asked more questions." MRI. With contrast, what you should always ask. Harold's story is unforgettable. His doctor ordered an MRI with contrast just to be thorough. Harold didn't realize his kidneys were already compromised. 2 days later, he felt lightheaded, weak, and mentally foggy. The symptoms dragged on for nearly a week. Only after his primary care doctor ran blood tests did the truth come out. Harold had stage 3 kidney disease. His words still echo, "No one warned me. If I had known, I would have asked more questions." And that's the takeaway. If your doctor recommends a contrast MRI, don't hesitate to ask, "Can this be done without contrast?" In many cases, the answer is yes. A simple blood test called GFR can give both you and your doctor peace of mind. Also, mention any unusual reactions you've had in past imaging tests. The MRI itself isn't the enemy. It's the extra chemical your body may not be able to process properly. With the right precautions, you can still get the answers you need without putting your kidneys or brain at unnecessary risk. Carotid artery ultrasound, when preventive backfires. Now let's look at another test that seems harmless, even wise to do regularly, the carotid artery ultrasound. On the surface, it looks perfect. Non-invasive, no needles, no loud machines, no radiation, just a quick scan that takes a few minutes. What could possibly go wrong? Here's the surprise: if you're over 60 and have no symptoms, this test could steer you towards surgery you never actually needed. The carotid arteries are the main highways delivering blood to your brain. Over time, like any road, they can collect build-up plaque made of cholesterol or calcium. That's completely normal with aging. But here's the key, not every bit of plaque needs to be cleared out. In many cases, simply monitoring the situation is far safer than rushing to operate. So where does the danger come in? Imagine you get the scan and it shows narrowing of 50% or 60%. That number sounds scary. You're referred to a vascular surgeon. Suddenly, the conversation shifts to procedures like carotid endarterectomy or placing a stent. But if you've never had symptoms, no dizziness, no vision changes, no weakness, those surgeries may provide little real benefit. Worse, they carry very real risks. In fact, a major study published in the New England Journal of Medicine followed more than 3,000 seniors with moderate narrowing but no symptoms. The findings were eye-opening, for many surgery did not significantly reduce stroke risk compared to medication and lifestyle adjustments. And here's the chilling part. A percentage of patients actually suffered strokes as a direct complication of the surgery itself, either during the operation or while recovering. When preventive leads to harm, one story that truly strikes the heart comes from Helen, an 82-year-old woman from Pennsylvania. She felt completely fine, no dizziness, no weakness, no symptoms at all. During a routine checkup, her doctor suggested a carotid ultrasound just to be thorough. The scan showed a 65% narrowing. Within weeks, she was sent for surgery. But instead of walking out healthier, Helen left the hospital changed forever. During the procedure, she suffered a stroke. She survived, but today she lives with permanent weakness on her right side. Through tears, she told us, "I wish I had known that sometimes doing nothing might have been safer." What you should ask. So what's the takeaway? If your doctor recommends a carotid ultrasound and you don't have symptoms, don't be afraid to press for clarity. Ask, what are we really looking for? If you find narrowing, how will that change my treatment plan? If you're already managing your blood pressure, taking cholesterol medication, and living a healthy lifestyle, extra scans might not change a raw thing. And if you've already had a scan that showed some narrowing, don't panic. Ask whether simple monitoring, like a repeat scan in the future, is safer than rushing into surgery. And above all, get a second opinion before committing to any vascular procedure. The bigger picture. Here's the truth, not every test is dangerous, but not every test is necessary either. Especially after 60, our bodies respond differently. Something routine like a dye injection, a sedative, or a treadmill test can ripple through your system in ways you don't expect. A simple injection can spike your blood pressure. A scan can set off an unusual reaction. Even a standard checkup can carry hidden risks if your system is already fragile. That's why it's critical to slow down, ask questions, and make sure every test is tailored to your health, not just a box checked off a list. You have every right to say, "Is this truly essential for me right now? Can we consider a safer alternative?" Because when you're informed, you make stronger choices. And stronger choices lead to better outcomes, greater peace of mind, and more years lived with quality and independence. Final words. Your health story matters. Your voice matters. Here we believe that every decision about your body should be guided by knowledge, not fear, not routine, and not habit. So tell us in the comments, have you ever felt off after a scan or test, or watched a loved one go through something unexpected? Let's share, connect, and learn from each other's journeys. And if this video helped you feel more aware, more empowered, and more in control, don't forget to subscribe to Elderly Wisdom Diaries. Hit the bell so you never miss what's next. Together, we'll keep uncovering the truth, asking the tough questions, and shining a light on what really matters, your well-being.